Wait, let me ask you something. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do, and no one, not a single person, believed you? Because that's exactly what happened to me when I was 17 years old. My own sister looked my parents in the eyes and told them I stole from them. And just like that, I went from being the favorite daughter to the family disgrace. 8 years. That's how long they abandoned me. But what they didn't know, what none of them realized, was that the truth has a funny way of surfacing when you least expect it. And when it finally did? Let's just say the people who turned their backs on me were the same ones begging for my forgiveness. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most, please hit that subscribe button right now. This story is for you, and I promise, you'll want to hear how this ends. Let's get into it. My name is Olivia, and I'm 25 years old. I live in Miami now, in a beautiful apartment overlooking the ocean, a life I built completely on my own. But 8 years ago? I was living in my car, eating ramen noodles for dinner, and wondering if my own family would ever speak to me again. This isn't just a story about being disowned. It's about what happens when the people you trust most choose to believe a lie instead of giving you the benefit of the doubt. It's about a sister who was so jealous, so consumed by her own insecurities, that she was willing to destroy me to get what she wanted. And most importantly, it's about parents who loved me more than I ever realized, even when they couldn't show it. Let me take you back to where it all started. Back to when I was 17, living in a modest 3-bedroom house in Georgia with my parents, Walter and Jane, my older sister Camille, and my little sister Lizzie. Growing up, I was what you might call the good kid. I didn't party, I didn't sneak out, I didn't talk back. I studied hard, got straight A's, played varsity soccer, and spent my weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter. My parents were proud of me. They told me all the time. My older sister Camille? She was the opposite. Don't get me wrong, I loved her. But Camille had always been difficult. She dropped out of college twice, cycled through jobs like they were going out of style, and had a habit of blaming everyone else for her problems. She was 23 at the time, still living at home, still relying on our parents to bail her out financially every few months. My younger sister Lizzie was only 12, and she idolized both of us. She was the glue that held our family together, always smiling, always trying to make everyone happy. My dad, Walter, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm. He was quiet, methodical, the kind of man who planned everything down to the last detail. My mom, Jane, was a school librarian, warm, nurturing, but also incredibly trusting. Too trusting, as it turned out. Despite Camille's struggles, our family was close. We had Sunday dinners together, went on road trips during the summer, celebrated every birthday and holiday with the kind of warmth you see in commercials. I truly believed nothing could break us apart. I was wrong. It happened on a Tuesday in November. I remember because it was the week before Thanksgiving, and my mom had just started prepping for the big family meal. I came home from soccer practice around 6 p.m., sweaty and exhausted, ready to take a shower and finish my AP history homework. But the moment I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. My parents were sitting on the couch, their faces pale and serious. Camille was standing by the window, arms crossed, wearing this expression I'd never seen before, cold, almost triumphant. Lizzie was nowhere to be seen. I later found out my mom had sent her to a friend's house. "Olivia," my dad said, his voice shaking. "Sit down. We need to talk." I sat. My heart was pounding. I had no idea what was coming. "Money is missing from our savings account," my mom said quietly. $5,000. I blinked. "What? When?" "Over the past 3 months," my dad said. "Small withdrawals. We just noticed when we were reviewing our statements." "Okay," I said slowly. "But what does that have to do with me?" That's when Camille spoke up. "Don't play dumb, Olivia," she said sharply. "We all know it was you." I stared at her, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" You're the only one with access to the account besides Mom and Dad, Camille continued, her voice dripping with accusation. You've been using Mom's debit card for school supplies and soccer gear, right? Don't lie. I've seen the receipts. Those were legitimate purchases. I protested, looking at my parents. Mom, you approved every single one of those. You know that. My mom looked away. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Olivia, my dad said, and his tone made my blood run cold. Camille showed U.S. bank statements. The withdrawals match up perfectly with the dates you used the card. That doesn't mean I stole anything. I shouted, panic rising in my chest. I bought what I said I bought. You can check my room, you can check my bank account, I don't have $5,000. She probably spent it already, Camille said, her voice so calm, so certain. Or she's hiding it somewhere. Either way, Mom and Dad, you need to face the truth. Your perfect little daughter isn't so perfect after all. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to defend me, to tell Camille she was out of her mind. But they didn't. My dad just shook his head, disappointment etched into every line of his face. My mom had tears streaming down her cheeks. How could you do this to us, Olivia? She whispered. We trusted you. I didn't do it. I screamed. I was crying now, desperate, terrified. Why would I steal from you? I don't need money, I don't want money, I would never. Enough, my dad said firmly. We don't want to hear any more lies. And that was it. No investigation. No second chances. They had already made up their minds. The next few days were a blur of horror. My parents stopped talking to me. They wouldn't even look at me. Camille moved around the house like she owned the place, shooting me these smug little smiles when no one was watching. On Friday, my dad sat me down and told me I had two options, pay back the $5,000, or leave. I don't have $5,000, I said, my voice hoarse from crying. I didn't take it. Then you need to leave, he said flatly. We won't have a thief living under our roof. I packed my bags that night. One suitcase, my backpack, a garbage bag full of clothes. I begged my mom one last time to believe me, but she just turned away. Lizzie hugged me goodbye, sobbing. I don't think you did it, Livy, she whispered. I don't. That was the last kind thing anyone in my family said to me for 8 years. I moved in with my best friend, Pearson, and his family. They didn't have much space, but they let me sleep on their couch until I figured things out. I finished my senior year of high school, working part-time at a grocery store to save money. I couldn't afford college, so I started taking online courses while working full-time as a waitress. For the first 2 years, I tried to reach out to my parents. I called, I texted, I sent emails. I even showed up at the house once, but my dad threatened to call the police if I didn't leave. You're not our daughter anymore, he said. So I stopped trying. If you're still watching, thank you. I know this is heavy. But trust me when I say this story gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. And if you've ever been cut off by family, drop a comment below. You're not alone. By the time I turned 21, I had clawed my way into a decent life. I worked 2 jobs, one as an administrative assistant at a law firm, the other as a freelance graphic designer. I moved to Miami, far away from my family, far away from the memories. I made new friends. I built a career. I learned to live without them. But here's the thing about being disowned, it never stops hurting. Every birthday, every holiday, every major milestone, I felt their absence like a physical ache. I thought about them constantly. I wondered if Lizzie was okay, if my parents ever regretted what they'd done, if Camille ever felt even a shred of guilt. The answer, as I would later find out, was complicated. During those 8 years, I had no contact with my family except for one person, my dad's younger brother, Uncle Edward. Edward had always been the black sheep of the family, a free-spirited artist who lived in New York and only showed up for major holidays. But for some reason, he reached out to me about a year after I was kicked out. "I don't believe you stole that money," he told me over the phone. "I know your father. I know how stubborn he is. But I also know you, Olivia. And you're not a thief." Edward became my lifeline. We talked every few months. He never pushed me to reconcile with my parents, but he kept me updated on the family. That's how I knew that Camille had moved out, gotten married to a guy named Donald, and had 2 kids. That's how I knew Lizzie had started college. That's how I knew my parents were struggling. "Your mom asks about you sometimes," Edward told me once. "She doesn't say much, but I can tell she regrets what happened." "Then why doesn't she reach out?" I asked bitterly. "Pride," Edward said simply. "And shame. It's a powerful combination." I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I'd moved on. But deep down, I was still that 17-year-old girl, desperate for her parents to believe her. Here's where the story takes a turn. In early 2024, my dad's father, my grandfather Henry, passed away. He was 89 years old, and while his death wasn't unexpected, it still hit the family hard. Edward called to let me know about the funeral. "Are you going to come?" he asked gently. "No," I said immediately. "They made it clear I'm not part of the family anymore." "Olivia, your grandfather left you something in his will." That stopped me in my tracks. "What?" "I don't know the details," Edward said. "But his lawyer, a guy named Peter Grims, specifically mentioned your name. You should at least call him." So I did. Peter Grims was a kind, elderly man who had been my grandfather's attorney for over 30 years. When I called, he sounded relieved to hear from me. "Miss Olivia," he said warmly. "I've been trying to reach you. Your grandfather left you a substantial inheritance." "How much?" I asked, still processing. $250,000. I nearly dropped the phone. "There's more," Peter continued. "Your grandfather also left a letter. He wanted me to read it to you in person, but given the circumstances, I think it's best if I tell you now." "Okay," I whispered. "Your grandfather knew about what happened 8 years ago," Peter said carefully. "And he never believed you were guilty. In fact, he spent the last few years of his life quietly investigating the situation." My heart stopped. "What did he find?" "He found proof, Olivia. Proof that your sister Camille was the one who stole the money." The world tilted. Peter explained everything. My grandfather, suspicious of the accusations against me, had hired a private investigator to look into Camille's finances. The investigator discovered that Camille had opened a secret bank account shortly before the thefts began. She had deposited the exact amounts that were missing from my parents' account, $5000 total, over the same time period. But it got worse. Camille had used my name and a fake ID to make the withdrawals. She'd been careful, strategic, covering her tracks by timing the thefts to coincide with my legitimate purchases. It was calculated. Premeditated. She had framed me on purpose. Why? I choked out. Why would she do that? According to your grandfather's notes, Camille was jealous of you, Peter said gently. She resented the attention your parents gave you. She wanted to take you down. And my parents. I couldn't even finish the sentence. They don't know yet, Peter said. Your grandfather wanted to tell them himself, but he passed before he could. He left instructions for me to present the evidence at the reading of the will. When is that? Next week. I flew back to Georgia for the first time in 8 years. My hands were shaking the entire flight. The reading of the will was held at Peter Grimm's office, a stately old building in downtown Atlanta. I arrived early, my stomach in knots. Edward met me in the lobby and pulled me into a tight hug. You ready for this? He asked. No, I admitted. Good. Me neither. We walked into the conference room together. My parents were already there, sitting side by side, looking older and more tired than I remembered. My mom gasped when she saw me, her hand flying to her mouth. My dad just stared, his expression unreadable. Then with her husband Donald. She looked nervous. Her eyes darted to me, then away, like she couldn't bear to look at me. Lizzie, now 20 years old and stunning, jumped up the moment she saw me. Livy, she cried, running over to hug me. I held her tight, tears streaming down my face. I missed you so much, she whispered. I missed you too, Lizzie. Peter cleared his throat. Now that everyone is here, let's begin. The will itself was straightforward. My grandfather had left most of his estate to be divided among his children and grandchildren. I received $250,000, as Peter had mentioned. Camille received $50,000. Lizzie received $100,000. But then Peter pulled out a folder. Before we conclude, he said, his voice grave, Henry left specific instructions for me to share some information with the family. Camille went pale. Peter opened the folder and pulled out a stack of documents, bank statements, investigator reports, copies of transactions. He laid them out on the table, one by one. 8 years ago, Olivia was accused of stealing $5,000 from Walter and Jane, Peter began. She was disowned based on this accusation. However, Henry never believed Olivia was guilty. He hired a private investigator to look into the matter. What he found was deeply troubling. My dad leaned forward. What are you talking about? Peter slid a bank statement across the table. This is a bank account opened by Camille 1 month before the thefts began. As you can see, deposits were made into this account that match the exact amounts and dates of the missing withdrawals from your account. The room went silent. That doesn't prove anything, Camille said quickly, her voice shrill. I was saving money. You were unemployed at the time, Peter said calmly. According to your own statements, you had no income. Yet somehow, you deposited $5,000 over 3 months. This is ridiculous, Camille snapped, standing up. You're trying to frame me. Sit down, Camille, my dad said sharply. She sat. Peter pulled out another document. This is a copy of a fake ID found in Camille's possession during a traffic stop 2 years ago. The ID bears Olivia's name but Camille's photo. The officer who pulled her over noted it in his report but didn't pursue charges. My mom let out a strangled sob. The evidence is clear, Peter said, looking directly at my parents. Olivia did not steal from you. Camille did. And she framed her own sister to cover it up. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my dad turned to Camille, his face red with fury. Is this true? No. Camille shouted. This is insane. Why would I? Is it true? My dad roared. Camille flinched. And then, slowly, her face crumbled. She started crying, ugly, desperate sobs. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she choked out. I needed the money, and I knew they'd never give it to me, and Olivia was always so perfect, and I wanted them to see that she wasn't. You destroyed your sister's life, my mom whispered, her voice shaking. You let us disown her. You let us believe she was a thief. How could you? I'm sorry, Camille sobbed. I'm so sorry. Get out, my dad said coldly. What? Get out. Camille looked around the room, desperate, but no one would meet her eyes. Not even her husband, who looked utterly horrified. She grabbed her purse and stumbled out of the room, still crying. The door slammed shut behind her. And then my dad turned to me. Olivia, he said, and his voice broke. I held up a hand. Don't. Please, my mom begged, tears streaming down her face. Let us explain. Explain what? I said, my voice cold. That you didn't believe me? That you kicked me out of the house without even trying to find out the truth? That you disowned your own daughter based on lies? We made a mistake, my dad said desperately. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But please, Olivia, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything, I said, standing up. I spent 8 years trying to prove my innocence to you. 8 years of wondering why my own parents didn't love me enough to give me the benefit of the doubt. And now you want forgiveness? Yes, my mom whispered. Please. I looked at them, really looked at them. They looked broken. Devastated. And a part of me, the part that still loved them despite everything, wanted to forgive them on the spot. But I couldn't. Not yet. I need time, I said finally. I need time to process all of this. Of course, my dad said quickly. Take all the time you need. I nodded and walked toward the door. Lizzie caught my arm. Will I see you again? She asked, her eyes pleading. Yes, I promised. I'm not disappearing again. And with that, I left. That night, I sat in my hotel room and opened the letter my grandfather had left for me. Peter had given it to me before I left his office. It was written in my grandfather's shaky handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before he passed. My dearest Olivia. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and the truth has finally come to light. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I wanted to wait until I had irrefutable proof, and by the time I did, I was too weak to confront your parents myself. I need you to know that I never stopped believing in you. Not for a single moment. I watched you grow into a remarkable young woman, even without your family's support, and I am so proud of you. But I also need you to understand something about your parents. They made a terrible mistake, yes. But they made it out of pain, not malice. Your father is a man who trusts logic and evidence, and Camille presented a very convincing case. Your mother is a woman who trusts her children, and she couldn't fathom that one daughter would betray the other so deeply. They were wrong. Unforgivably so. But they loved you, Olivia. They still do. And when they learn the truth, their guilt will be unbearable. I'm not asking you to forgive them. That's your choice, and yours alone. But I am asking you to give them a chance to earn your forgiveness. They don't deserve it. But perhaps, in time, they can. I love you, my dear girl. I always have. Grandpa Henry. I cried for an hour after reading that letter. And then, slowly, I began to heal. If this story has moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've experienced something similar, leave a comment below. Your story matters. Let's support each other. It took 6 months before I was ready to sit down with my parents. We met at a small cafe in Atlanta, neutral territory. My mom and dad were already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking anxious. Thank you for coming, my mom said as I sat down. I'm not here to make this easy for you, I said bluntly. I'm here because Grandpa Henry asked me to give you a chance. But you need to understand that I don't owe you anything. We know, my dad said quietly. We know. For the next 3 hours, we talked. They apologized over and over again until the words almost lost meaning. They told me how much they regretted everything, how they replayed that night in their heads constantly, how they wished they could go back and change it. We failed you, my mom said, her voice breaking. We failed you as parents. And we will spend the rest of our lives trying to make it up to you. I didn't forgive them that day. Or the next time we met. Or the time after that. But slowly, over the course of a year, we started to rebuild. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, setbacks, moments where I wanted to walk away and never look back. But I kept showing up. And so did they. Lizzie was the bridge that held us together. She refused to let me slip away again, calling me every week, visiting me in Miami, dragging me to family dinners even when I didn't want to go. As for Camille, I haven't spoken to her since that day in Peter's office. She tried to reach out a few times, apologetic texts, voicemails where she begged for forgiveness, but I blocked her number. I wasn't ready to deal with her, and honestly, I don't know if I ever will be. Donald divorced her 6 months after the truth came out. My parents cut her off financially. She lost almost everything. I wish I could say I felt sorry for her. But I don't. She made her choices. Now she has to live with them. Today, I have a good relationship with my parents. It's not perfect, it probably never will be. There's still a part of me that flinches when they say they're proud of me, still a part of me that wonders if they'll believe me the next time something goes wrong. But they're trying. And that's something. I used the inheritance from my grandfather to start my own graphic design business. It's thriving now, and I've hired a small team. I've built the life I always wanted, not in spite of what happened to me, but because of it. Because here's the thing, being disowned taught me something important. It taught me that I don't need anyone else's approval to be worthy. It taught me that my value doesn't come from my family's acceptance or anyone else's belief in me. It comes from me. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. So if you're watching this, and you've been betrayed, disowned, or abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you, I want you to know this, you will survive. You will rebuild. And one day, you'll look back at this moment and realize that their rejection didn't break you, it made you stronger. As for my grandfather, I visit his grave every few months. I tell him about my business, my life, my slowly healing relationship with my parents. And I thank him. Because even when my own parents gave up on me, he never did. And that, in the end, is the greatest inheritance he could have left me. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment about your own experiences. We're building a community here, and I'd love for you to be part of it. Remember, you are not defined by the people who gave up on you. You are defined by how you rise after the fall. See you in the next video.